Introduction. This story was inspired from The Bridge Within Eternity. That is a short story from Nemo's book, The Tales on the Sand, that is available for anyone who wishes to purchase it from Amazon. The Way to Eternity. There was the carpenter and the scholar. Now, the carpenter couldn't write, and the scholar couldn't perform carpentry, but working together in unity, they created dazzling furniture. At first there was pure potential energy that discovered itself. Then heaven within its creative integrity, that came in the guise of a mind-shattering precognitive dream, where it dreamt of itself and all its future divine friends, all existing within a virtuous, happy, and harmonious community, within a place that was at the edge of reason where the gods resided, which was situated upon the infinite, imaginative, creative shores of its peak potential, or its ultimate creative flux that was infinite and eternal. To get to this place it had to imagine a path to attain it, and so it created the heaven and hell dimensions that consisted of light and dark energy that oscillate within the adversity, diversity, and the extremes of its polemic nature that was apparent within all of its creation. So with spirit guides and angels that could sense within their hearts and souls their destination, or their ultimate home encompassed within its supernal mind, they evoked the realization of its absolute ultimate peak potential. That being to create a place that had both the physical and spiritual dimensions intertwined in karmic harmony, that if fully utilized, would help it realize its ultimate precognitive vision of its true home, eternal matter. To attain eternal matter, it had to create a pathway that would suffice. So it created reality out of energy and matter that were interchangeable, and time and space that are intertwined, which would become identified as the multiverse that was the precursor for eternal matter, and this cosmic environment and spiritual journey in unity was what it needed to realize the sacred place from its precognitive dream. So it decided to design a spiritual utopia in the physical dimensions with a parallel spiritual world where souls correlated, integrated, and developed their God selves from their spiritual journey as they walked the path of birth, generation, death, and rebirth on their karmic cyclic journey. Or, on the other hand, if desired, they could stay in the light and develop. Either way can be the ideal way to create a path towards eternal matter that was at the forefront of its creative, imaginative potential. The multiverse came into fruition through its realization of the Big Bang, the superstrings, and the potential energy that lay just below the subatomic particles, or just below creation. That, along with the four cosmic forces and the Higgs boson particles' influence that slowed down the potential energy waves, transforming them into kinetic energy, creating particles, or matter, and the forms, and they were all contained within its post-Big Bang spiritual and physical cosmological existence. It created the light, which is a subtle universe where it keeps its seeds that are an extension of itself, and the physical realities, which is where its unique personalities that are developed from the interaction of the functions and stimuli of the microcosm and the macrocosm that are both housed within the multiverse. The former being spiritual energy such as intuition, inspiration, and spirit visions flowing out from within one's being that connects to the right brain, and the latter, that being the physical stimulus that flows in through the senses that stimulates the left brain, and together they form the mind, thus creating the survival and the will to power mechanism that was innate and essential within its primal nature as it evolved within its ecosystem and or its environment. Its creation was a reflection of itself and or consciousness, the catalyst being life that would evolve, awake, ascertain, and realize its dream and peak with humanity. For it's through humans and all life that God, its angels, and the metaphysical environment gets created or enters heaven. Coming back to creation. With the arrival of the four cosmic forces, matter winning the war over antimatter, and gravity forming the stars, and that some stars were so heavy that they collapsed in on themselves, tearing through the fabric of time and space to become supermassive black holes, whose messy eating habits that along with the electromagnetic fields and gravity went on to form more stars, solar systems, and galaxies from all the debris. Further, there were a few random or spiritual events where the Earth got snookered by Thea that tilted it on its axis. And the aftermath was the 24-hour day and the 4 seasons that came with the arrival of the Moon and its orbit, which paved the way for life to evolve and to develop and gain the advantage of procreation, which was the first step on reaching longevity and eventually one's immortality. So, it created the dualism of the spirit and the flesh by placing its seeds in unison and correlation with the forms in the physical dimension within life, and then to let evolution help it to attain its awareness and self-consciousness as it sought survival and harmony. And it was then that the path was lit for the physical world and the light to develop within nature and spirit, where the animated forms or bodies and its transpersonal energy or soul integrated with each other's natures. They evolved via the Cambrian explosion, which created predators and prey that saw with their eyes and ate with their jaws to fill their hungry stomachs. Then on to sentient, then self-conscious, and on to spiritually aware beings with survival and power mechanisms of the lower self, and the intuitive, inspiring, impulsive thoughts of the higher self are in perfect unison and intact. Where its built-in survival mechanism and its personality that is created from its mind, such as its likes, dislikes, and habits, and its innate fear of death created an awareness that ironically can be seen as a vision of the hereafter or God's innate majestic paradise, eternal matter. Which is how the personality or soul gets connected to the Creator and empathically senses its odyssey. It then began to question the origins of its own life and its own reality, where eventually, after many life cycles between the soul worlds and the physical dimensions, its evolutionary karmic path became attainable to anyone who went in search of the truth, and it awoke within the dream to find its God self looking back at itself. With the epiphany of God is man, man is God, God is man, which was at the core of every soul's essence and its very being. Then with the constant battle of the supremacy between the instinct and habits of the lower self, the intuition and one's spiritual awareness of the higher self, the God seeds sought unification and resonated with their God self within, which was attained from an arduous course of contemplation, scholarly research, passive and active meditation, and connecting to one's creative visualization. However, on the whole, the seeds gained their unique personal individualities through the interaction of their 6 senses, life experiences, and their culture that was within their communities, towns, cities, or other rustic origins. Their self-awareness and their intuition penned the pagan esoteric tales, and the ethereal philosophies were visualized when they were looking up at the stars in the night sky and spinning off yarns of God's odysseys and just desserts. With that they awoke within its dream, and they remembered its identity and its quest, that it was in search of eternity, and that they were its children and were on the same path of self-discovery and spiritual exploration, to find not only themselves, but to search, find, and attain God's nature and their own spiritual destiny. So with deep thought, science, religion, and philosophy, they discovered its true destiny, that the reason for the physical and the soul world's existence was to unite their everyday living pragmatic and practical mind states of the animal nature with the intellectual and spiritual pursuits of its soul nature, so that it could realize that pre-universal but never forgotten supernal precognitive dream that it had had when it was just one solitary spark at the beginning of time and space, that was at the dawn of creation. And if social and spiritual harmony could be activated, and we would all have peace and harmony with ourselves, each other, and life, and the local and global environment. And that by living a moderate virtuous life was the way to realize God's aforementioned spiritual hypothesis, where unconditional infinite conscious beings all live together in perfect peace, unconditional love, respect, and harmony. Seeing this, humanity took control to unite the nations as they created a political theosophy. They penned and utilized the laws of nature and ethics, karma, free will, and reincarnation to impose or to tarnish and manipulate one's own antithetical spiritual ethos or choices and actions that arose from one's culture or one's conditioning, and the social environment that one was born into or was carried over intuitively from one's many physical and spiritual paths on their karmic journey, which were either stamped out of existence or absorbed into their own ethos that complied with their aforementioned laws that were marching in true dialectic fashion. The synthesis being that it is our thoughts that are associated with our virtuosity, how we see ourselves, and the wisdom and knowledge that we have gained on the path of life, which is what places us with like-minded or light souls within eternal matter throughout all eternity, because all of creation is caught up in the polarity of God's polemic nature and traits. For our Creator is absolute or complete. So both its perfections and its imperfections, such as selflessness and selfishness, good and evil, or nurture and nature, are active and permeate God's mind and behavior, of which it expresses within all that it creates or has created, that can be seen with natural disasters and human evil. So be cautious how you live your life, and what you wish, for it is how one chooses and acts in life that culminates by consigning one to a heavenly or a hellish final destination. When the physical body dies, it transforms into another form of matter and energy, the former being food, fertilizer, and dust, and the latter absorbs the vessel's personality or mind as it gets transported back to a subtle vibration and re-enters the light along with their environment. That is separated by frequency and not by its location, in preparation to be carried over when moksha, nirvana, or enlightenment becomes the norm and is achieved by all, and is reflected socially, psychologically, and spiritually, not only through humanity, but through a harmony with life. Eventually, through the unification of its dualistic mindsets, through humanity and life, it reaches absolute perfection, thus completing the finite path of birth, generation, death, and rebirth of the spirit and the flesh to become gods within and beyond, within the infinite and the eternal creative shores of heaven and hell as they enter spiritual utopia, or eternal matter, where all God's probable divine friends and itself are self-actualized along with their spectacular and awesome environment that is a plethora of all their unique, diverse, and adverse forms of beauty that has been carried over by the ethereans from their cosmic karmic journey, and from their hobbies and pleasures that are manifested so that they can all reside, wine, dine, feast, and share spiritual philosophy and infinite wisdom in a spiritual utopian celestial harmony that is located at the highest echelons or frontiers of eternity and creation, which is at the edge of infinity.